Hello everyone, this is the Unit 2 study guide for Enhanced Advanced Algebra and Pre-Cal AP. We are going to go over this so you have something to reference when you're completing your study guide, something to check it against if you get stuck and I'm not available. So I'm going to split this video up into a few different videos, one video for each page so it'll be easier to find each question. So let's go ahead and get started. Here, rational exponents, we're going to start writing things in rational exponent form to get rid of our radicals because radicals are very tough to work with in a lot of situations. So write each expression in its exponential form or its exponent form. So start here with the square root of x to the 5th power. So the square root of x can be written as x to the 1/2, and then that is to the 5th power. And then we can simplify that by saying, well, when we have a power to a power, we need to multiply these two numbers. 1/2 times 5 is 5 halves, and we will bring x to the 5 halves. Right, like that. Make sure your exponent looks like it's floating. Don't have it down here next to it, next to the base. Next up, the 6th root of 10a to the 7th power. It's pretty much the same thing that we had over here. We can take 10a. Make sure you have that in parentheses. There is an understood parentheses here underneath the radical. And that is to the 1/6 power. 1/6 power to the 7th power. And again, we multiply, so we would get 10a open parentheses, close parentheses, and 7/6. You need the parentheses here. You need the parentheses. No parentheses, and it's wrong. Because this is going to, the 7/6 is going to both 10 and a. So you can either have 10 to the 7/6 times a to the 7/6, or just put them both in parentheses and move the 7/6 out. 7v, or the cube root of 7v. Pretty much same thing as before. 7v in parentheses because it's all underneath the radical to the 1/3 power. 1/3 power. Okay. Moving on. This one's just like number 2. We have 10 to the 10n to the 5 halves. This is going to be the same thing again in parentheses because it's all inside the radical to the 1/2 since it's a square root. Sorry, this should not be 5 halves. This should be 2/5. 2/5. And then we have the square root of n, which is n to the 1/2 to the 3rd. So you get n to the 3 halves. Okay, moving on. Write each expression in its radical form. So this is just the opposite. 2k to the 1/2, that's in parentheses. So because it's in parentheses, we need to bring the entire radical 1/2 index of 2. And 2k is going to be in the radical. 7p to the 4/3, so we have the entire radical. 7p is going to be here. We need a cubed root because that's the denominator, and to the 4th power. To the 4th power. Now you could have parentheses here if you wanted to. That's fine. Make sure your 4th power is outside the radical, though. It has to be outside the radical. If the 4th power is inside the radical, that means it's just applied to p if there's no parentheses in here. M to the 4/5 would be the 4th root of m to the 5th. Since there's just one number under here, like here we have 7 and p, since there's just m in here, you can actually have the fifth on either spot, doesn't matter. Okay, to the -5/2. So this is going, first we get rid of the negative. Let's get rid of the negative first. So we'll put that 1 over 7r to the 5/2. And then we can simplify that part to be the square root of 7r to the 5th power, all underneath 1. There we go. So to get rid of the negative, move it to the denominator. 7x to the 2/3, that is the cube root of 7x squared. And then we have 6n to the 3/2 is the square root of 6n cubed. See, so all these parentheses will mean the same thing. Okay, moving on. Simplify. Your answer should contain only positive exponents with no fractional exponents in the denominator. So let's take a look to see what we got. So 3x times 2x times y to the -4th times y squared. What I like to do here is I like to split these up to kind of not like terms because they're not different terms, but it's all multiplication. So I'm going to rearrange these. So this is going to be 3 times 2. And then I have an x squared and an x, out of order, but x squared and an x. And then I also have a y to the -4th and a y squared. And then after that, I can just sort of multiply them. 3 times 2 is 6. X squared times x. So for multiplying two exponents, we have to add the powers together. So that becomes 2 plus 1 is 3. So 6x to the 3rd. And then -4 plus 2 is a -2. So we get y to the -2. And now we have a negative exponent still, so we have to get rid of that. So that we will put down here on the bottom, y squared, and everything else gets to stay on top. So 6 gets to stay on top, and x cubed gets to stay on top. This next one, so I have a 4 and a 2. Then I have an m to the -1st and an m squared. I have an n to the 1/2 and an n to the 3/2. So 4 times 2 is 8. M to the -1 times m squared. That's just going to be m to the 1st power. -1 plus 2 is 1. And then n to the 1/2 plus 3/2 is 4/2. So I get n to the 4/2, which I can simplify that 4/2 to 4 divided by 2 is just 2. So n squared. And there we go. Final answer. Number 15. Let's see here. I have a 2. I can go out there. I have an x to the 5/3. I have an x to the -2. Then I have a y to the negative 3/2 and a y to the negative 1/2. So let's bring the 2 down. 5/3 plus negative 1/2. So yeah, we have to add our exponents here. So 5/3 plus, or not negative 1/2, negative 2, so minus 2. We need to get these to have common denominators. So we're going to make this 6 over 3. 6 over 3. So I have 5 minus 6. Is that right? No, negative 2, x to the negative squared. Yeah. 5 minus 6 is going to be a negative 1/3. So this ends up being x to the negative 1/3. Now I have negative 3/2 plus negative 1/2. So that ends up being a negative 4/2 to the negative 4/2. And then we can simplify. I have a 2 on top. An x to the negative 1/3. So that's going to go on bottom. My cubed root of x, yeah, no fractional exponents. So cubed root of x. And then this becomes a y to the negative 2, so y squared. So put y squared. Make sure you put that in front of the radical. And there we go. Okay, 3 more on this page. So let's see, I got a 2. I have an x to the negative 1/2. I have an x to the negative 3/4. And then I have a y to the 4/3. We can bring the 2 down. Negative 1/2 plus a negative 3/4. So we're going to change 1/2 to have a, oh, I'm off my page here, aren't I? There we go. I'm going to have to change this negative 1/2 to be, have a common denominator. So we're going to change this to 2/4. So now I can do negative 2 plus a negative 3 should be a negative 5/4. So x to the negative 5/4. There was no other y's in here, right? So we can just bring down y to the 4/3. And then we can simplify it up. That should have been this teal color. Sorry about that. Simplify it. We're going to do 2 cube root of y to the 4th power over x is negative, so it's got to go to the denominator. So this would be the 4th root of x to the 5th. There we go. Very unsatisfying answer. Number 17. Let's get these 2 here. I got a 3 here and a 2. My next variable, let's go with the x's. This is x to the 7/4. That's the only x, yep. And then I have 2y, so y to the negative 3rd and y to the negative 3/2. So 3 times 2 is 6. X to the 7/4 can just drop down. To add, we need to add a -3 plus a -3 halves. So we need to get a common denominator of 2. So we're going to change -3 to -6/2. So that should still be -3. So this ends up being a -9/2. -6 plus a -3. So I get y to the -9/2. And then clean it all up. 6, the 4th root of x to the 7th, all over the square root of y to the 9th. Okay, one more problem. 2 times 2. So bring those down. And then I have m to the -1/2 and m to the -4/3. So that ends up being a 4 times m. And we got to do 1/2 plus 4/3. So -1/2 plus a -4/3. We need to bring it to a common denominator. So that's going to be 6. So half of 6 is -3/6 plus, multiply both of these by 2, you get a -8/6. So -8 plus a -3 is a -11. So you get m to the -11/6, which is equal to 4 divided by the 6th root of m to the 11th. Okay, that concludes page 1 and thus video 1, and I will see you guys in the next video.